Welcome to the Building Doors Podcast, where we're not just pushing for opportunities for women's voices to be heard, we're creating them. I'm Christy Harst, voiceover actor and creator of the Building Doors campaign. Join us as we amplify voices, break barriers, and build doors together.
Hey there, I'm Cheryl Holling, and I'm a proud door builder in the Building Doors campaign. I like to say it was originally manufactured in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and distributed in Los Angeles, California. Shortly after my mom and dad, and along with my two older sisters, moved to the States in order for my folks to pursue their creative endeavors. I made my first stage appearance at the age of 5 as a choir boy in a production of the opera Tosca that my mom had a role in, and thanks to the pixie cuts that she used to give me at the time. While I would initially mock opera singing, I came to have a deep appreciation for its artistry and for my mom's beautiful voice. Since that first time on stage, I knew that I wanted to do something with my voice. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood that was fairly rough around the edges, and I'd create characters as a way to make people laugh and get my peers to stop bullying me, which unfortunately happened quite often. You see, when I was 11, there was this salesman who would go door to door offering the use of a free accordion if you paid for a series of lessons. So while my sisters were taking piano lessons, I was signed up to take accordion lessons, as if having a mouthful of braces and top and bottom headgear wasn't enough. Needless to say that I was becoming quite the awkward belle of the ball in my neighborhood. And although I initially resisted, I quickly excelled in my class and would have continued taking classes if the upgrade from the free accordion to the one that we had to purchase wasn't so cost prohibitive, thus ending my squeeze box days. Throughout my teens, I went on to perform in several of my father's stage productions, high school plays, musicals, and dance recitals. I also studied classical voice in my mid-teens and for several years in college. It was during one particular class that I attempted to sing a song that I knew was beyond my technical ability. But I figured a class is supposedly a safe place to learn and take chances, right? So I attempted the song Prisoner from the Eyes of Laura Mars, which is not the easiest song to sing. I mean, Barbra Streisand sang it, for goodness sakes. When I was finished, instead of receiving constructive criticism, the professor in front of 40 students said very sternly, "What makes you think you can sing that song?" To say I felt publicly humiliated and shamed is an understatement. I was also studying theater and communications, and the latter led me to eventually taking a job at KCRW, the local college NPR radio station. It was actually a dream come true, because when I was growing up, FM radio in Los Angeles was incredible. Music of every genre was being played by the best DJs who would interview and tell wonderful backstories of the musicians behind the music, and they had the most amazing voices to listen to. I began working in the office before being offered a Sunday afternoon board shift, where I did the announcing of the local programming, ran the promos, recorded and edited carts and reel-to-reel tapes, by hand, with razor blades, as everything was analog and DAWs were rarely used in those days. It was during that time that I fell in love with audio, the station's vast music library, and the whole production process. I eventually worked my way up to having my own jazz music show in the wee hours of the morning as part of their Strictly Jazz music block, before being added to the coveted spot of being a guest DJ on the Morning Becomes Eclectic music slot, a hallmark show of the station which continues to run to this day. I guess you could say that felt like a big break for me and something that I was good at. Perhaps my professor didn't want to hear me sing, but listeners loved to hear me talk about and program music. My experience in theater, singing, and childhood days of entertaining my classmates with different character voices fueled my dream of one day becoming a singing character in a cartoon, as they were known then. I'm eternally curious about hearing and telling people stories, and now as an adult, I get paid to do that without being sent to the principal's office. After being at the station for a couple of years, I interviewed with the head of National Radio and Records Promotion for Warner Brothers for their jazz division, as he was leaving to begin his own independent company. I got the job, and for the next 3 years did national radio and record promotion for some of the most well-known names in jazz and jazz fusion at the time, such as Miles Davis, Al Jarreau, Pat Metheny, David Sanborn, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, to name a few. After leaving that job, I went on to form my own promotion company before being offered an in-house PR and promo position with a boutique label in Northern California, known as Cafe Records, a division of Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, which was the first label to release the original British direct-to-disc pressings of the Beatle albums in their infamous black box set. After leaving Cafe Records, I returned to Los Angeles, worked in promotion for another year, before deciding I wanted to once again pursue my love of acting by auditioning for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. After being accepted, I chose to go to their New York campus to attend their summer session. Torn between continuing at the Academy in New York or returning to my rent-controlled apartment in Santa Monica that was just 10 blocks from the beach, I opted to return to LA and continue taking classes there, auditioning, getting an agent, joining AFTRA, and then joining SAG, because at the time the unions were still separate. During that time, I met a graduate student from UCLA Animation School who was casting voices for an avant-garde animated version of Hansel and Gretel. I won the role of Gretel, and that was my first role in VO outside of the radio station. There's a saying in the musical Hello, Dolly, that if you live from hand to mouth, you better be ambidextrous, something actors and creative entrepreneurs know a lot about, as we're often faced with more no's than yeses and have to come up with creative ways to survive. As such, I've worked in every kind of secular job to stay afloat, from working as a file clerk in a basement in downtown LA with critters running around in the corners, to star-studded award shows and everything in between. I got a job in the marketing department of a mid-size ad agency and worked my way up as a junior ad producer working on radio and TV campaigns while auditioning under the stage name I had at the time for the very roles the agency was producing. This position taught me so much about the casting process, the minutia of the details involved in the decision-making process, and also about trusting your gut about the artistic choices one makes as a voice talent. A dear friend of mine, shout out to Mindy Dacus, was the assistant to the producers for the Writers Guild of America West awards show, and they were thinking of having a woman to do the show's live announcing and asked me to audition. At the audition, Mindy asked me to warm up the producers with both my imitation of a dolphin and the silly tongue twister I used to do in character. I figured it was her funeral, but obliged, and had the producers howling, got the job, and made history as the first woman to live announce their award show. Afterwards, one of the producers, I believe it was the late George Kiergo, said to Mindy, "She's very capable and a real pro." And if you knew George, you knew that he wasn't one to say things he didn't mean. It was such an affirmation that I was headed in the right direction in using my voice. From there, I went on to do on-camera work for several television shows and films before moving back to Northern California and returning to radio for a while. My husband and I then moved to Nashville for 2 years, started to do more voiceover work, doing pre-recorded in-show announcements, and then being hired for dramatic readings and church productions. After 2 years, we became homesick and moved back to California. While searching for a small space to create a VO studio, a longtime friend of my husband's offered up the back of their sound installation business, which in its heyday had been a fully functional recording studio, but for the 20 years since it stopped operations, was used as a storage space for old recording equipment, electronics, and computers. They offered the use of that space if we would gut and sell off all the old equipment and in return refurbish it and use whatever equipment I needed to build my own studio. The old control room is where I built my studio, and if I do say so myself, it was gorgeous. My husband was also able to revive the former live studio space into his drum studio. After 4 months of continuous sweat equity, labor, and expenses, Sound Satchel Studios was born. However, 5 months after getting my DBA and publicly hanging my shingle, our friends announced they were selling their business and moving out of state. No forewarning, no explanation of why and how this all happened so fast. And to make matters worse, they took back all the equipment they gave me as part of the deal to convert the studio, leaving me rather bereft and having to start from scratch. In hindsight, the lesson in that experience is that business is business and friendship is friendship. And if you do business with your friends, make sure you have a contract so that everyone is protected. After grieving both the loss of our studio and the end of my husband's 30-year friendship, I spoke to my husband about converting our small dining room into my VO booth, where I currently work out of. Given my love of radio and storytelling, in June of 2020, I launched my first podcast, 19 Stories from Fear to Hope, to initially address the fear that was gripping our world during the pandemic and was affecting the livelihoods of my creative colleagues. And it's since evolved into conversations highlighting creativity, overcoming challenges, and more importantly, hope. In November of 2023, I launched my second podcast, The Voice Kitchen, where recipes and voice talent blend. where I invite voice talent into a virtual kitchen to share their most favorite recipes and the meaning it has for them and their families. Our own Christy Harst has joined me as a guest. As far as what genres do I specialize in, I don't really specialize in any one specific genre. I've done commercial, corporate, animation, live, and pre-recorded in-show announcements, and most recently was cast as a series regular in Season 2 of The Mysterious Chirp, which is a monthly science fiction podcast. What I love about working in various genres is the versatility, and that it stretches me as an actor. Some brands that are on my bucket list of clients that I'd love to voice for include World Central Kitchen, as they're one of my favorite nonprofits. They understand the importance of comforting people through a crisis by making sure they are well-fed, feel seen, and cared for. I'd love to voice a long-form documentary for them highlighting the extraordinary work they're doing worldwide. I'd also love to voice a Nature, National Geographic, or PBS documentary, as well as a documentary highlighting dynamic women's voices and stories that we haven't heard through the ages. And given I live in the North Bay, or as I like to call it, Pixar country, the ultimate dream role would be cast as a radio host or podcaster in one of their animated features. But hey, I'll be open to whatever roles you have. And if you're listening, Pixar, I'm right here in the Bay Area. It's a short drive to your studios. I'm just saying. If I could be the voice of any major campaign, what would it be and why? Well, there are two car brands that I completely resonate with. The fun, sporty Mini Cooper-esque Countryman and the stylish and classy Lexus all-electric RZ. I realize that Mini Cooper's target market skews much younger, but I'd love to be the voice who speaks to an entire demographic of people my age who are all about having fun, are carefree, and have unconventional personalities. As far as the Lexus RZ, it's luxurious and sophisticated. And I'm that too, even if I'm at an age where I'm now wearing sneakers with my ball gowns. What qualities make my voice stand out in this genre? My voice can be energetically fun while being relatable. I can be all about business while maintaining warmth and enthusiasm. In VO as in podcasting, we don't always get feedback from our clients or listeners. But most recently, at the end of a session with a new client, they thanked me for being willing to record at 6 a.m. my time, and that I was, in their words, a real pro. That instant feedback let me know that I was the right voice for their project, even though, honestly, I personally felt my audition wasn't one of my best, reminding me to never second-guess the casting director's choice. As far as what's something unique about me that influences my VO style, I've shared about my life and creative experiences, and a bit about my passions. And while I've shared the highlights and success, there's been a lot of pain that I haven't touched on. I mentioned that I grew up in a highly creative family, but behind the curtain, my father battled alcoholism most of his life. My mother battled depression that resulted in a nervous breakdown. One of my siblings attempted suicide. My mother died of ovarian cancer less than 3 months after her diagnosis and less than 3 months after my father passed. Both of my sisters have had breast cancer twice, with one currently dealing with stage 4 metastatic cancer. And I've had my own near-death experience. Throughout my life, I've fought some really damaging voices that have spoken into my life, and I believed them. Voices telling me that I was ugly, weird, too loud, I needed to be quieter, smaller, or that my opinion didn't matter, or what makes me think I can sing that song or do that thing. And I realize this is a huge trauma dump as I'm coming to the end of my episode. But the reason I share this is because when I put myself in the shoes of another person or character, read a script, story, or interview someone for my own podcast, I have life experience to draw from that can understand and empathize with their pain points. And conversely, the joy on the other side of that pain and everything in between. And that's what influences my unique VO style. A fun fact about me I'm really proud of is that there is part of a face climb in Sequoia National Park that I got to name. All the fear I had throughout my life was exacerbated in a breakup I was going through with someone I had been with for 8 years. And while I was also coming to the realization that I had a really unhealthy fear of heights, so much so that I would shake sometimes going up an escalator. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? I wanted to face that fear head on. So I enrolled in an 8-day backpacking and rock climbing trip with an organization called Outward Bound. During that trip, I did numerous rock climbs, and one day we went to a part of a rock wall that wasn't in their guidebook, and whoever volunteered to climb it first got to name it. Although I'm not a vengeful person, I named it Cheryl's Revenge, as a way to say to those, especially to myself, take that. I faced my fear and did the hard thing. If my voice were a brand, what would it be known for? The answer to that has changed over the years. And I'm of a certain age where I tend to care a lot less about the petty stuff I used to get caught up in, and a whole lot more about the people and things that matter to me most. So my voice brand would be known for being honest, direct, warm, powerful, kind, encouraging, empathetic, and one that embodies human intelligence. Thanks for checking out my Building Doors podcast episode and for your support of this campaign. If you'd like to work together, you can email me at cheryl@cherylholling.com and visit my website at cherylholling.com to listen to 19 stories and hear more of my work. And you can listen to The Voice Kitchen at thevoicekitchen.libsyn.com.
Thanks for listening to the Building Doors podcast. Want to hear more? Check out all our episodes at buildingdoorsvo.com/podcast and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Building Doors VO. We'd love to hear from you, so call us on our 24/7 hotline at 216-307-1917 and leave us a voicemail with your thoughts. Do you want to support the podcast? Well, we love coffee. Buy us a cup through the link in the description or at buildingdoorsvo.com. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep speaking up, and let's keep building doors together.